The Africa Center for Energy Policy, ACEP, is suggesting that to permanently deal with the energy crisis, government must devote a chunk of Ghana's oil revenue to solve it. The suggestion follows a projection by the Millennium Challenge Corporation that Ghana needs about $4 billion over the next 10 years to permanently solve the crippling power crisis. Now, despite this projection, MCC budgeted only $498 million to help fix the power crisis, which ACEP believes is woefully inadequate. So, should government be looking at our oil revenue to solve dumsor? What does the Petroleum Management Law permit, and what does it not permit? This is today's big story with me, Stephen Enti. This is today's big story. Now, 9% of the country's annual petroleum revenue is supposed to be lodged into the Heritage Fund to support future development when Ghana's petroleum reserves have been depleted. That's what the Petroleum Management Law of 2011 permits. Also, 21% of Ghana's annual oil revenue, which goes into a stabilization fund, is to support the economy in dire times, while 70% of oil proceeds is used to support the budget. Let's first hear ACEP's position on using a chunk of the petroleum revenue to solve the energy crisis.
And ECG owes VRA. As at August 2014, ECG owed VRA more than 1 billion cedis. They owed Asogwe about $21 million.
ECG seems to owe everybody.
They owe,
including you and I,
Greco, more than 100 million cedis. So we believe that if we want the power industries to function, the government should pay its debt to ECG. ECG should pay VRA. VRA should pay, say, Ghana Gas, so that at least they can do investment, they can expand. This is it. But where does the money come from? We can support with a little from the ABFA. So the ABFA is 70%. We don't do equal allocation, so probably 5% to the power sector. I don't think it will cost us so much, but it can help more like solve some of the issues we are facing.
How isn't there any other suggestion that you can make to government apart from finding the money to fix this? I mean, what there are there alternatives, aren't there?
Yeah, let us look at the problem first, then we can just look at the alternatives. We have the causes, one of them being geographical, more like low water level in the Akosombo and Bui Dam. We also have lack of fuel, natural gas and light crude oil for our thermal plant. So let's just take these two. When we take the first one, we just have to pray and hope.
Pray and hope.
Yeah, that there will be more rain.
ACEP is saying we should pray and hope. ACEP is supposed to be a think tank.
I said when you take the first one. Now when you take the second one, the thermal plants, Ghana depends on thermal plants and hydro for our electricity generation. So when you take the thermal plants, what we need is fuel. And natural gas is very cheaper than oil. So we have, normally natural gas can be transported only in two ways, either through pipeline or as LNG. We are lucky that we have a pipeline from Nigeria through Togo, Benin, through Tema to Takoradi. We have gas at Takoradi. Unfortunately, the pipeline we have, per the agreement, we cannot do what we call reverse flow. We cannot take gas from Takoradi to Tema. We have a lot of thermal plants in Tema that needs the gas. So we have to more like quicken and renegotiation with all the owners of the pipeline so that we can bring gas to Tema.
Right, we'll be speaking to some energy experts on that. But also, the water level in the Akosombo hydroelectric dam has dropped below the minimum operating level of 240 feet. The level as of today is 239.98 feet. Though the dam has continued to operate with a reservoir going as low as 235 feet, engineers have advised against it. But how critical is the current level of the 239.98 feet? Our news editor Israel Laye has been following the energy issues and spoke to Gifty Ando Apia earlier on The Pulse a while ago.
The situation is critical, but the engineers will tell you it's not dire. So it's bad, but not very, very bad, because the dam has actually gone to 235.76 feet before, and we are currently doing 239.98. So yeah, we could stretch it a bit.
Would you remember when it went this low?
I think 235 was, I think, in 1984.
1984.
Yeah.
And if you compare the population at the time and now, then it is dire, I would say.
it is critical, but not dire. Yeah,
well,
because we can keep running it for a while. Akosombo is supporting. Akosombo is currently doing 4 units. You know, if you look on the screen, you see that there are about 4.
Well, we don't have that on the screen yet, but if we have it, exactly,
you see there about 6 orange ones. They're currently doing 4 of them. 4 of the turbines. And they say that during the weekends, when the demand for electricity is not so much, then they'll be doing 3, because sometimes they would want to drop it a lot further. But so they're managing the situation as it is. Otherwise, there are 6. Otherwise, there are 6, and if we're running all 6, they probably could be seeing the water drafting or going down at a much faster pace.
Now let's talk about how far the VRA intends to stretch the dam. How far do they want to go?
They are looking at, it's currently, like I said, 239.98. They're willing to take it to 238. They're at this current rate, it's dropping at about 0.05 feet a day. And they're hoping that at this rate, they can take it to June, the end of June, when it's going to get to 238. 238, they're hoping that at 238, things would improve. The other plants that they're looking at bringing on stream will come on board, and so then they wouldn't have to, at that point, then they don't have to. So
there will be very little pressure on it.
There will be less pressure on it. And
right, that was Israel Laye there with Gifty and Apia earlier on the polls. We have Kwame Jantua, who is Vice Chairman of the Public Interest and Accountability Commission, PIAC, is joining us on the telephone lines now. Mr. Jantua, good evening and thanks for your time.
Good evening, and good evening to fellow Ghanaians.
Great, and I also have in the studio Kojo Poku, who is an energy expert. Mr. Poku, good evening and thanks for joining us at such a very short notice.
Good evening, you're always welcome.
Great, so let's start the conversation, Mr. Jantua. ASAP is suggesting that government uses a chunk of the oil revenue to solve the energy crisis permanently. How much is chunk and how much is most? I mean, we are not sure how much money we have and how much of it we should use to solve this energy crisis, knowing very well that we need about $4 billion US, as the MCC says, over a 10-year period to solve the problem.
Little drops of water always make a mighty ocean. You know, some of us from the word go maintain that the oil revenue shouldn't be put in the consolidated fund. Some of us were dead against it. Some of us felt that the oil revenue should be put in a special account and used for particular projects that were pertinent to the economy. And one of them is dumsor today. Dumsor is causing so much havoc to everyone. Okay, so they didn't listen. They put in the consolidated fund, 70% consolidated fund. Where we're going to now, we should be bold. Now that the PRMA is going through revision, we should be bold and reverse it. 30% in the consolidated fund, 70% we will put in an interest account. And probably take some of that 70% out for the heritage and stabilization. So even if we say out of that 70, 40% we're going to put in a high interest account, we would begin to generate some kind of income outside the statutory body. So you give a typical example of Norway. Norway right now has over 4 trillion in their account. They always use 4% for physical projects.
Budgetary support or for infrastructure development?
For infrastructure development. And we need to really start from somewhere. This dumsor should open our eyes to sit down and say, so, what are we doing wrong? What should we do now to make sure that What we're going through today does not happen in the future. If you look at Akosombo Lake, from Monday, May 11, 2015, the water level was 240.12 feet. As you said, it's gone down. Sunday, May 11, 2014, it was 248.85 feet. What does that tell you? It tells you there is a trend in terms of our generation power and in terms of what we use for generation, especially because of boys concerned. So who was tracking this trend? It doesn't look as if we have learned from what has happened in the past. Because you see, I keep saying, dumsor doesn't start today. Dumsor started in President Rawlings' time. And it has come and come and come and come and come. And we haven't done anything about it. And we've got to a stage now where it's crippling everything.
Mr. Janto, I'll have you hold quickly so I can get some views from Kojopoku and then we'll continue the discussion. Mr. Poku, ASAP's position for the lay person sounds easy. It's okay. I mean, use a chunk of the oil revenue that we have to fix the dumsor problem permanently. We do know the law, the Petroleum Management Law of 2011 has some allowances. We need to put a percentage into the Heritage Fund and a percentage into the Stabilization Fund and 70% for budgetary support. So where can we juggle this to now get to the chunk for which ASAP is suggesting we use to fix the energy problem?
Okay, you see, using the money is not the issue. What are you going to use the money for is my problem. Okay, everybody talks of, oh, use this money, use that money. I will be honest with you, as we stand here, the Ministry of Power does not have a blueprint. We've not done any feasibility. We've not done any wide research to say, look, Ghana as we stand today is not an industrialized nation, but today we are having power problems. Do we want to be an industrialized nation? Yes, we want to be. Now, VALCO is not working and we have dumsor. Do we want VALCO to work again?
Yes, we want.
Yes, we do. So the problem is that using the money, the lawyers and the parliamentarians have, if you look at the Act of 2011, it has ways that Parliament can amend it if we do feel that there's a need to use that money to resolve.
You agree with Mr. Jantua that we need a review of the Petroleum Management Law?
Not necessarily, but what are you going to use the money for? That's the question. Yes, if we do find the need for the money, if the money is sitting there, the Stabilization Fund or the Heritage Fund. The Heritage Fund is mostly for future infrastructure.
But is the money sitting there? Do we know?
Well,
maybe we should ask that
if it's not, then somebody has to go to jail. But the point is, the money should be sitting there because there is a structure in the Act how that money can be assessed. If it has gone to Parliament for Parliament to now allow them to assess it, then we should know. But for as far as we are all concerned, nobody has touched the Heritage Fund. And the Stabilization Fund, there was a talk of trying to get some of that for budget support because of the dip in the petroleum prices and what we expect. So that one was the talk before. But what we are talking about is more or less the Heritage Fund, which they want us to access to be able to solve the dumsor. But my point is that, what are we doing? Look,
do we know what we must do or what we should be doing?
But that is what the government is supposed to do. The first work, look, you have 9 thermal plants, 9 cut across the east and west, giving us about 125 megawatts. We have about 4 or 5 more coming on stream to give us about 500 or 600. We have all these little plants giving us 200, 300. If we don't take care, by the time we want to solve this dumsor problem, we've introduced more problems because we have about 15 thermal plants using various fuel sources, giving us our fuel mix. Now, if there's no HFO, which the power barge is going to use, the power ship is going to use. Most of the new emergency
barges
power
won't work.
They are going to use HFO.
Yeah,
they're not
so
going to use
if
gas.
there's no
if there's no HFO, they're not going to work. Now, if the gas from Atwabo has a problem, most of our gas plants ain't going to work. But the point is, what is the plan? Look, call the ministry right now. They don't have a plan. There is an ad hoc solution that we're doing. So yes, what I suggest is that, look, let's have a review, a feasibility study for people of talk of solar, people of talk of wind. I want to introduce nuclear. Okay?
Nuclear. Let me pause you on the nuclear bit. Seriously, I need to get to Mr. Jantua. Mr. Jantua, let's talk nuclear. I'm looking at the MCC saying that Ghana needs about $4 billion to permanently resolve the energy crisis over a 10-year period. And I also do know that the Ghana Atomic Energy Commission has requested actually about $6 billion. So we'll look at the margin of $2 billion. If we add a little more, we can go nuclear and resolve the problems permanently. Is this not something that we should be pursuing?
We should pursue any available source that can help with our generation.
Including nuclear?
Well, it depends on how much it's going to cost us, because it doesn't take one day to set a nuclear plant up. You see, this $4 billion they're talking about, we can get that $4 billion. We can get that $4 billion. Why do I say that? How much have we earned out of one oil field in the last 3 to 4 years? How much have we earned? We've earned in excess of $2 billion. So now we have the 10th project. We have Vitol, ENI, GMPC. We have that project. We have HES, who have discovered made seven discoveries. If all these new oil fields are in production, do you know the amount of money that is going to come into the economy? It's a question of how do we manage this money effectively? And I think we should go back and look at the PRMA. It's now under review. We should go back and look at it and ask ourselves, is it worth us putting 70% in a leaking consolidated fund? Because really and truly, what we should be doing is to tighten our traditional sources of revenue, the wastage, because there's a lot of wastage. Tighten it. We should begin to think about adding value to some of these resources we have. We should start thinking of how do we put a national development plan in place, not only a national long-term development plan, but an energy development plan. Separately. So that we can, because without energy, we are crippled. We are crippled.
Mr. Jantua,
industry today is crippled.
That's right. Mr. Jantua, I will hold you. Kojobogo, you wanted to, I saw you nodding. There was a reaction you wanted to make over the nuclear question.
Right. It's the way, you see, government does not need to give birth to another VRA or ECG. In this day of business, government does not need to fund anything 100%. All government needs to do is to do the risk equity, which is the initial feasibility. When government does the feasibility and realize that this project is feasible, government can now put in 20 or 30% of equity. There are numerous companies in the world that will come in for the 70%.
So is nuclear feasible?
Yes, it is.
10 years?
Because you see, even less. You see, look, when Kwame Nkrumah did Akosombo, 1,000 megawatts in the 60 years ago. Imagine how powerful that was. 1,000 megawatts 60 years ago. If we do 3,000 megawatts in nuclear today, we've done what Kwame Nkrumah did 60 years ago.
60 years ago.
So we've gone to one source and gotten 3,000 megawatts.
And so what is stopping us from exploring the nuclear option?
My brother,
is it competence of the personnel to manage this?
No, we have to do a feasibility. Look, just talking about it, the president in his address talk of coal. Why are we going back?
But the commission has done that feasibility already.
No, but what I'm saying, why are we going back on coal? Around the world, UK, they have the largest coal reserves in Newcastle.
That. Yeah.
And they ran away from that. They just, for 2019, they've already passed the bill in the House of Commons to get a nuclear plant in the UK in 2019. But they have the largest coal reserves in Newcastle. So why is Ghana trying to go coal when the countries that have the coal is going away from it? It's not the way to go, because look, there are at-hand problems. Yes, nuclear has its problems. But in the US right now, okay, the federal government of the US government is actually subsidizing every company that wants to come and build a nuclear plant in the US. And it doesn't have to be owned by government. There are numerous nuclear companies in the world that would jump at an opportunity to build a nuclear plant in Ghana. But the cost is about $3, $4, $5, $6 billion US. No private person can put up that money. So the government has to take the lead and do the seeding, at least do the risk equity, the feasibility studies, the location of the plant, and then invite foreign investors to come in and look at the business opportunity. This is what we've done. We've done the risk assessment. We've done the feasibility. We would come in with 20%, come in with 80%. You can even go onto the stock exchange and raise the money.
Do you get the feeling the government is feet dragging about the option of nuclear?
No, they have not looked at it. If you go to the ministry, they've not looked at anything. The point is that they are busy trying to solve yesterday's problem, which is what we are doing today. Tomorrow's problem is being left down for somebody else. So the problem we have today is not the minister is dragging his feet. The minister wants power now for the existing economy that we have.
And to win election, possibly.
Well, I'm not the one to say that. But the point is, by the time that he solved that problem, we have another problem to come to, which is sustainability going forward. Because if you now have about 15 thermal plants in the country, giving you about 2,000 megawatts, you've introduced so many ifs into your equation. If there's no gas, you don't have power. If there's no HFO, you don't have power. If there's no crude oil, you don't have power. Atobo has a problem, you don't have power. So there's too many ifs. For the next 30 years, how many thermal plants can we build to give us 3,000 megawatts? The only solution...
Not enough. I mean...
You cannot... We don't have... We cannot build that. So the only solution today, there isn't enough rivers to build another View or Akosombo.
Right, let me get to Mr. Janto. Mr. Janto, you're still on the line. I'm sure you're following the discussions we're having. Your quick reactions before we continue.
Stephen, let me refer you to the Bloomberg report, which was April 14th, 2015, 8:27 p.m. GMT, the actual time. Now, I'll read what it says, and I quote. It says, the price of wind and solar power continues to plummet and is now on par or cheaper than grid electricity in many areas of the world. Solar, the newest major source of energy in the mix, makes up less than 1% of the electricity market today, but will be the world's biggest single source by 2050, according to the International Energy Agency. What does that tell you then?
It tells us that solar is the way forward.
Exactly. And it tells us that we should start now. If countries that do not have the resource we have are putting solar in their countries, when you go to the UK today, all their parking meters are solar. All their parking meters. How much sun do you get in the UK during the winter? But it works. And so yes, nuclear is a good option, but solar is a better option. And so we should start looking at how we can increase our solar capacity. You see, the one thing that we are also not doing, by the year 2030, 2040, Ghana's population would have reached about 35 to 40 million people. Who is planning for that? Who is planning for that? And do you know the demand on energy then? Even with 25 million people, look at the demand on energy.
So Mr. Janto, would you have a clue why for all these years government has not made, well, I wouldn't say not made enough effort, but frantic and more serious effort in solar and nuclear, if these are options we could pursue to resolve the matter permanently?
Have we been thinking?
I don't know.
Have we been looking at it? You know, we have a culture in Ghana where when things get repaired, or situations, we find solutions to situations, we sit back. We do not think about it. Look at what is going to happen. They just finished the UK election. Look at the reforms that are going to happen from the results of these elections. What reforms happen with our own things that go wrong? What are the reforms? And solar, for me, is the way forward.
Solar is the way forward.
Listen, when Nkrumah built Akosombo Dam, he then started BRI. He then brought in an atomic reactor because he knew that Akosombo would not take us the duration he wanted to take us for. So who is planning? Out of, let's even take 92, Jerry Rawling, Kofor, Tamil, Muhammad today. plan towards the energy
It's
sector.
planning.
Because really and truly, what we should have done with ECG is not to find a private company to come in and help us run. It's to open up competition.
That's right.
For other companies to come and compete with ECG and give the people the option to go to any of the ECG-like companies to get the electricity.
Mr. Jantua,
That would make it efficient.
Mr. Jantua, you've made your point very strongly, and I'm grateful for your time. I'm afraid that we're running out, so we need to wrap up. Thanks very much, Mr. Jantua. Kwame Jantua is Vice Chairman of the Public Interest and Accountability Commission, PIAC. He joins us on today's Big Story. So, Mr. Poku, Kwame Jantua is saying that solar is the way forward. You agree?
Yes, solar is, but solar has its adherence difficulties, as all does. That's why I'm saying that, look, you need a report, a feasibility.
So if you have $4 billion to invest over a 10-year period, if government has, you wouldn't advise government to put that, all of it, into solar?
No, because solar, you see, what solar is for embedded generation. Solar is embedded. If you look, like I told you the last time, you have 2 megawatts in the northern region. If you look at the space that they used to generate 2 megawatts, okay, the panels stretch over a few kilometers of space to get the 2 megawatts that we have. But they now connected that to the national grid. So the loss you have in transmission is huge. But if that 2 megawatts has just been put in for the northern community, that 2 megawatts will go a long way to serve the community.
But that comes back to the same issue of planning that Mr. Jantua is talking about.
And we both, me and Mr. Jantua, on the same page of planning, feasibility. Do a concrete plan of where you want to go. So the solar is for embedded generation. Look, Ashanti region, do a 4 megawatts generation in Ashanti region, or maybe Brown Ahafo with a smaller population. Put that 4 megawatts solar for Brown Ahafo residential. Okay?
Do you genuinely think government has been pursuing consistently aggressive policies to resolve this energy crisis?
No, not at all.
This government or the previous government? No one is thinking?
A civil servant told me once that Buzia had a document. We were to explore all hydro potentials in all our rivers by 1998. Before 2000. And after 2000, we look at thermal to augment all our hydro. That was Buzia's plan. That went out of the window when Buzia left.
And there's been no plan.
And there's been no plan. So there's been no plan. No plan whatsoever. So the way forward is, let's sit down. Fine. We have one eye trying to resolve the current problem.
That's
but
good.
The other eye is for the way forward. What is going to take Ghana the next 50 years? Where is our next 50 years power going to come from? It's planning. Nkrumah did Akosombo, which has lasted us 1,000 megawatts, 1,020 megawatts 60 years ago.
That's Ghana. That's an incredible vision.
Incredible.
Right? And sometimes I'm sure you feel sad that nobody had come up with
the next 60 years, what are we going to have? Ghana is not going to expire. We're going to be here for the next 100 years.
Mr. Bogo, I'm afraid I have to wrap up. My name is Stephen Enti, and I've enjoyed this discussion extremely. We do hope that our leaders will be planning to make sure that over the next 10 years we can resolve this dumsor matter forever. My name is Stephen Enti, and we'll be right back with Joy News Interactive. Do stay.